Large, snowy, Arctic. Arctic wolf.
Small silver Arctic snow marten. Small white Arctic polar bison. Medium silver Arctic marmot.
Small gray polar lemming. Giant gray Arctic caribou.
Medium white Arctic ibex.
Small white polar bear. Large gray polar reindeer. Small snowy Arctic yak. Large silver Arctic pika. Medium white Arctic reindeer. Giant snowy polar bear.
Medium silver Arctic wolverine.
Medium gray Arctic glacier lynx. Giant silver Arctic reindeer. Large white Arctic lemming. Tiny icy Arctic moose. Giant frosted Arctic musk ox.
Small silver polar snow marten.
Small white Arctic pika.
Small silver Arctic musk ox. Tiny snowy Arctic pika.
Medium white polar wolverine. Small snowy polar glacier lynx.
Small silver polar Arctic moose. Giant icy Arctic yak. Small white Arctic arc moose. Giant icy Arctic glacier lynx. Small snowy polar Arctic fox. Giant white polar snow marten. Giant snowy polar yak. Medium gray Arctic reindeer. Medium white Arctic pika. Large white polar bear.
Giant frosted Arctic polar bear.
Medium gray Arctic pika.
Small white Arctic yak.
Medium snowy Arctic wolf.
Giant gray polar ibex.
Medium gray Arctic caribou. Large snowy Arctic wolverine. Giant snowy Arctic wolverine.
Giant silver Arctic
Medium white Arctic ice weasel. Medium gray Arctic polar bear.
medium silver Arctic musk ox.
Large gray polar caribou.
Small silver polar yak.
Small silver polar snow martin.
Small gray Arctic wolf. Tiny frosted Arctic pika. Large silver Arctic ice weasel. Large frosted Arctic fox. Small snowy polar marmot. Giant icy Arctic moose.
Tiny white Arctic caribou.
Large gray polar marmot. Medium white Arctic musk ox. Giant gray Arctic snow martin. Small white Arctic yak. Giant gray polar snow leopard. Small gray polar lemming. Small snowy Arctic marmot. Large silver Arctic snow leopard. Giant snowy polar Arctic fox.
Medium snowy Arctic mountain goat.
Large silver Arctic wolf. Small silver polar snow martin.
Tiny silver polar Arctic fox.
Medium gray Arctic moose. Small gray polar pika. Small, snowy polar marmot.
Medium snowy polar mountain goat.
Small white Arctic wolverine.
Small gray polar marmot.
Small white Arctic lemming. Giant gray polar snow martin. Giant gray Arctic glacier lynx. Large gray polar Arctic moose. Giant gray Arctic mountain goat. Small silver polar glacier lynx. Giant white Arctic polar bear.
Large gray Arctic fox.
Giant silver Arctic ibex. Large snowy Arctic snow martin. Large snowy polar Arctic fox. Giant frosted Arctic ibex. Large snowy Arctic ibex. Giant icy Arctic snow leopard. Giant gray Arctic moose. Giant white polar glacier lynx. Large snowy polar snow martin. Large gray polar bison. Giant frosted Arctic moose.
Medium snowy Arctic caribou.
Tiny snowy Arctic moose.
Giant gray Arctic ice weasel.
Medium gray polar bear.
Tiny white polar yak.
Small white Arctic mountain goat.
Giant icy Arctic muskox.
Tiny white Arctic wolverine.
Large white polar Arctic wolf. Tiny gray Arctic ibex. Large snowy polar ice weasel. Giant frosted Arctic moose.
Large snowy Arctic mountain goat.
Small snowy polar ice weasel. Large white Arctic lemming.
Tiny gray Arctic musk ox.
Medium gray polar ice weasel. Medium white Arctic ice weasel. Small snowy Poland marmot. Small white Arctic polar bear.
Tiny silver Arctic glacier lynx.
Large white Arctic yak.
Giant gray Arctic caribou. Giant gray polar ibex.
Small white Arctic yak.
Small silver Arctic fox.
Small gray polar pika.
Tiny white Arctic yak. Large snowy polar caribou.
Medium white polar Arctic hare. Large icy Arctic snow leopard. Small white Arctic caribou. Medium snowy polar Arctic fox. Medium white polar pika. Giant gray Arctic caribou. Giant frosted Arctic wolverine. Tiny silver Arctic ibex. Medium silver Arctic ibex. Small snowy Poland marmot. Medium gray polar ice weasel.
Medium white Arctic ibex.
Medium white polar bison. Large gray polar caribou. Giant white polar wolverine.
Tiny frosted Arctic moose.
Medium white polar reindeer. Giant frosted Arctic wolverine. Tiny white Arctic marmot. Giant white Arctic polar bear. Medium silver Arctic caribou. Giant gray Arctic musk ox. Small silver polar snow marten. Small white Arctic wolverine.
Giant snowy polar Arctic hare.
Giant silver Arctic polar bear.
Tiny icy Arctic musk ox.
Small silver polar bison. Small snowy Arctic reindeer. Medium snowy polar bear. Giant gray Arctic snow leopard.
Giant frosted Arctic musk ox.
Tiny white Arctic ice weasel. Large snowy polar Arctic fox. Giant silver Arctic caribou. Small snowy polar reindeer. Medium white Arctic snow marten.
Giant gray polar Arctic hare. Medium silver Arctic moose.
Large white Arctic snow marten. Small gray polar glacier lynx.
Tiny frosted Arctic marmot.
Large snowy polar ice weasel.
Medium silver Arctic moose.
Giant icy Arctic glacier lynx.
Tiny frosted Arctic moose.
Small white Arctic fox. Giant frosted Arctic mountain goat. Medium white Arctic pika.
Tiny white Arctic reindeer.
Medium gray Arctic ice weasel. Small frosted Arctic ibex. Giant snowy polar reindeer.
Tiny silver Arctic glacier lynx.
Small gray polar caribou. Large white polar Arctic wolf.
Small white Arctic musk ox. Small white Arctic moose.
Tiny icy Arctic reindeer.
Giant frosted Arctic ibex. Tiny frosted Arctic wolverine. Giant white polar musk ox.
Tiny white Arctic caribou.
Tiny gray Arctic reindeer.
Medium gray Arctic snow leopard.
Giant gray polar bison.
Tiny snowy polar musk ox.
Small white Arctic snow marten.
Medium snowy Arctic marmot.
Giant white polar Arctic hare.
Medium snowy polar glacier lynx.
Giant icy Arctic snow leopard. Small white Arctic polar bear. Tiny silver polar bear.
Medium snowy Arctic fox.
Small gray polar ice weasel.
Medium gray Arctic snow leopard.
Small snowy Arctic marmot. Giant white polar wolverine.
Large snowy polar Arctic wolf.
Giant icy Arctic lemming.
Giant snowy polar glacier lynx.
Tiny white Arctic polar bison.
Medium silver Arctic snow leopard.
Giant snowy Arctic snow marten.
Small snowy Arctic.
Tiny silver Arctic ibex.
Giant frosted Arctic polar bear.
Giant snowy polar reindeer.